Hey guys, Scott and Vanessa Martindale here with Blended Kingdom Families. At BKF, we believe now is the time to change the modern day interpretation of the blended family.
Absolutely, you guys. As a blended family ourselves, God laid it on our hearts to build a ministry that helps support blended families by equipping your marriage, uniting the family unit, and igniting your faith. Our mission is that you would be touched by God and experience His goodness through this ministry, that your family would have practical skills, resources, and tools to help you live that abundant blended life.
Hey guys, Scott and Vanessa Martindale here with Blended Kingdom Families. So glad that you have joined us. We are here with an amazing couple, amazing authors of a great book, Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo. Did I say that right?
You got it right.
Oh my gosh, great. Guys, great to have you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the BKF podcast.
Yes.
We're so happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, you guys.
Yes. You guys, we have been following y'all for a long time. We first, were introduced to you guys on EXO, and ever since then you just put out great content, and we know that our viewers are going to be so blessed by it today. But first, I just want to tell them a little bit about you. You're the co-host of the Top Marriage Podcast and Apple Podcast, which is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. So if you haven't seen that, guys, or listened to it, go check it out. You speak to a worldwide audience about sex, love, and commitment, and challenge every listener to make their relationship a priority. And that's what we love, because y'all really talk about marriage and intimacy and how important that is. Love that. For the last 10 years, they've equipped couples with the tools and strategies they need to create their own extraordinary marriage. They've written many books, including 7 Days of Sex Challenge, which is what we're going to talk about today, How to Rock Your Sex Life and Your Marriage, and Strip Down 13 Keys Unlocking Intimacy in Your Marriage. Wow, you guys, that's incredible. I love that.
Well, and what I love about, we really try to minister to blended families, but even before that, it's the marriage and your relationship with Christ. And the marriage, the rock of the family in terms of just making sure that is strong and secure. Mm-hmm. Intimacy is a huge part of that.
Yes.
And so we're excited to dive into this topic, kind of lock arms with you guys, and hopefully encourage our audience on this. So before we get too deep into this, tell us more about you, your family, what you guys do, enjoy, anything you want to tell us, the audience, about you guys and your family.
Well, Tony and I have been married for 24 years now. We have two children, one who is about to turn 18, our oldest. And so that's like a very weird spot to be in, we're at the point where we've got adult children. We've been doing One Extraordinary Marriage now since January of 2010.
Wow.
And we had no idea this last decade was going to be, when we started, that it was going to be dedicated to helping marriages. We just knew at that point in time that our marriage needed help. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't find the resources that we needed. So we just started having conversations and talking about life. And that became One Extraordinary Marriage.
Yeah, it's so good.
Well, and the book itself, guys, 7 Days of Sex Challenge. Mm-hmm. Okay. So who thought of this? And as you are embraced, Tony, it sounds like a guy thought of this and then convinced his wife that this was going to be a good idea. So, Jazz, just tell us your heart behind writing the book, kind of the challenge itself. And I know as everybody is perked up to understand this, just tell us all that you can tell us about this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to start us even prior to when we started One Extraordinary Marriage, because that's really where it all comes together, why we put 7 Days of Sex Challenge together. So at year 11, Alisa and I were sitting in a place where in our marriage, we had like three options. In all honesty, we had a 5 and a 2-year-old at the time. Mm-hmm. We were disconnected, had been just going through a lot of life.
Yeah.
And really, we were just in a place of plateau. And we got to this place, I believe that, and I think Elise would agree with me on this, is that we have three options. Either A, we hang out till the kids turn 18 and we get a divorce after they leave the house.
Yeah.
2, we get a divorce now. Or 3, we get radical. And we happened to be watching a TV show. Some friends of ours had, her daughter was doing like some beach volleyball or something. But right after that segment was two couples. And these two couples did sex challenges, which at the time was pretty radical to hear about. The first one, the wife gave her husband for his 40th birthday 365 days of sex.
Wow.
Now, they never saw how many days they do it. But I was like, in my mind, starting to go, whoa, this is interesting. Okay, the second couple comes on, and they're talking about doing 101 days of sex. And they did 101 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, they had some transformation that happened in their lives. We're about to lead a small group study at our church for 8 weeks around the book called Intimacy Ignited. Fantastic book all around the Song of Solomon. We wanted to talk about sex in our church. And so I looked at Alisa as we're watching this, and I looked at her, and my mind's just racing real quick. And I'm like, okay, 8 weeks, 2 months, 60 days. And I look at her and I go, hey, what if we do a 60-day sex challenge while we do this small group study? We have accountability built in, and we'll see what happens with our marriage.
It's good.
So yes, it was the guy having the idea and trying to sell it to.
And my question on that, and again, granted, I'm a guy, so I'm gonna come from this angle, but I want our listeners who are wives and who are in that position to understand, okay, is this just to make my husband happy? Or does this,
Great question.
because from a guy's perspective, this may be a physical victory. This may be something very physical and say, hey, we're sexual beings, 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, every day, sounds great. But this is not just about a physical accomplishment. This is, from your seat, Alisa, how did you interpret this, and why was it a good idea?
Well, I will say at first, I didn't think it was a good idea. I actually said no immediately. Like, I don't even think Tony finished the thought. And I'm like, absolutely not. Because we had that 2 and 5-year-old, and I was full on mom, and I couldn't imagine doing this. And, the story continues the next day, literally a come to Jesus moment, standing in my garage with a basket full of laundry, where I'm convinced it was the voice of the Holy Spirit that said, you're not even willing to try.
Yeah.
Right. He's not asking you to, jump off a cliff or do anything, crazy or dangerous. He just wants you to make him a priority for 60 days. What would that look like? And, to your point, Scott, a lot of people do, when they ask me about it, they're like, so you just had sex with your husband. You agreed to have sex. And yes, I started off in the agreement of, what could happen? Like, what would that look like? All right, 60 days, whatever. But what we discovered so quickly into doing this was that it wasn't just the sexual intimacy. We started connecting, our emotional intimacy during that period of time was through the roof. We were laughing again, and we were having conversations, and we were sharing our dreams. And yes, we were having sex regularly, like almost every day. We ended up doing 40 out of 60 days, but it was all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
That we didn't realize we'd also lost in those years when life was just hitting us left and right.
Even the physical intimacy, as I think about it now, was prior to that was always like touch, Alisa. Hey, I'm touching you. Let's have sex. Where in that 60 days, it really began to shift, even in my mind, of like, I'm getting the physical through the physical touch through sexual intimacy, and yet we could just go out and hold hands and not mean that leads to anything. Right. It means we're just holding hands, or we're just going to hug in the kitchen, not meaning it's going to lead to more. And so, yeah, it's a physical thing, but I will also say that I was the first one to tap out after, I think, 11 days. I was the one who asked for a break because I was honestly just tired at that point in time. I was like, I need a break. Like, I need to just rest today.
Yeah.
So I was actually the first one who tapped out to just get a rest day.
That's funny. Well, you guys, one of the things that we love about the book, and kind of to piggyback what you were talking talking about, guys, you know, not just being the physical aspect, but you talk about the pillars of the different pillars of intimacy in your book. So can you kind of dive into what each of those are and what those mean and how you came to that, like what those are?
Well, it's so funny because, you know, when you start something, you don't know where it's going to go.
Right.
Right. So all those years ago, when we stripped down 13 Keys to Unlocking Intimacy in Your Marriage, we were talking about different intimacies. We'd gone beyond defining it as just, you know, sex between husband and wife. We were going, okay, where are these other areas? And so it's been really neat over this last year just to see that concept that we started with all those years ago really come with a decade's worth of experience for us to understand that there are 6 different pillars of intimacy that really work together to create strong, extraordinary marriages. And those 6 pillars are, you know, the first one's your emotional intimacy. We were just kind of talking about, it's the conversations. Like, what does it look like to be able to share your dreams and your desires and your feelings and be able to do so in a safe space.
Right.
Right. Then you have your physical, which is all the touch that isn't necessarily sex, right? It's just the hugs and
the kisses, the hand holding. Yep.
Yeah.
The financial, obviously we're all dealing with finances in some way, shape or form in our marriage. So we got to talk about that financial intimacy. I mean, Alisa and I were at one point in our marriage, $50,000 in debt and got ourselves out of it. It's probably one of the first big goals we ever had as a married couple that we looked at together and said, we're going to go after this and tackle it. Spiritual intimacy. I mean, how are you praying, worshiping, going to church? Do you?
Yeah.
Does one partner have faith and one is maybe not there? Have you both had faith and maybe it's waning or is it growing? So what's your spiritual intimacy look like for the two of you? For some, it may be every night praying, you know, getting on your knees and praying. For others, it may be just being in a place where the worship music is moving and that's where the two of you meet. Recreational intimacy, date nights. Activities together. What are you doing other than just going through life, raising kids and doing work or business? And then lastly is our sexual intimacy, which one that we have talked about most often on the Extraordinary Marriage Show. Yeah.
I love that.
Well, and I think it's interesting to hear you talk about the different pillars, and as you're listing them, you know, I'm sitting here thinking about Vanessa and I, and then, you know, we're alike in a lot of ways, and then we're different in a lot of ways. You know, and I think it's really interesting as we're in 7 years of marriage, so we're going down the trail, and we're getting, the years are adding up. Obviously, we're raising kids. But the one thing that I think is important for couples, and our couple included, is we take notice of kind of where our intimacy level is at those different areas. Because there are some areas where we're probably very in tune, and there's probably some areas that we're very far apart, just because our personalities are a little bit different. But I think the answer here is there's some intentionality about where you can step towards your partner and go, I think I can get more intimate with her or him in these areas by doing an extra step or by going this direction. So just good thoughts and good nuggets. And as we relate to our own marriage. Obviously, intimacy, sex can be difficult as it relates to, you know, busy schedules, kids, extracurriculars. Let's be honest, we're Uber drivers that don't get paid. There's so many things that go about this. We're Uber drivers that don't get paid, and we're chefs that don't get paid. We're maids.
Domestic engineers. You know.
We do all of these things. So what are some practical and some spiritual advice that you would give in terms of guidance on how to keep your marriage and intimacy a priority?
Yeah, that's great. And so after we did our 60-day sex challenge, Alisa and I needed a break. 40 out of 60 days, we were like, we need a break. Prior to that, I just want to share with everybody, we were probably having sex maybe once a month. I mean, if we had sex twice a month, that was like a big month. It was probably more like once every 4 to 6 weeks. So we came out of the 60-day sex challenge going, this was amazing. And the big thing that made it amazing was we got intentional about our marriage for the first time ever. Like we actually got intentional about being connected emotionally, sexually, physically. We did talk about spiritual intimacy in that time frame. And so we took a break and we were like, okay, if we don't do something, we'll just go fall into our old habits.
Yeah.
It'll be real easy. And so a couple months after, we came up with what's called the intimacy lifestyle. And for us, it's about scheduling sex. And we've been doing this for 12 years now. And it's been amazing to be a part of that with Alisa over the last 12 years, because we've grown. I mean, we've grown emotionally, spiritually, sexually, but we've also grown in age. And so we've had to like navigate that. And it's been an interesting journey to be able to go, wow, what has this done for our marriage? How's it made us like connect when we didn't want to connect? Because there are many a times in the last 12 years where we had arguments, where the kids were just like opposite ends of the house, screaming this and the other. And yet we decided that we're going to connect. How are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that we're getting our time together?
Yeah. No, scheduling is so important. And was it Sean and Lynette Reed? They talked about that also, that in using your phone, even using your phone, like literally putting it in your schedule, like using technology to help you if that's what you have to do, but that intentionality to plan to have sex.
Yeah. No, I 100%. I want to get your take on it, on Alisa. I'm sorry, I always say that wrong. Alisa.
It's okay. It's okay.
What did that do from the female side of it?
Yeah.
Did that increase your intimacy in your marriage? Did it make you feel more connected?
Having the gift now of being able to look back over the last 12 years and say, what has shifted in our marriage? And, to use terms that people might be familiar with, I tend to be the lower desire spouse, right? I don't think about sex as often as Tony does. And that's changed. I mean, we've had different seasons in our marriage and things like that. But by and large, if you were to ask who's the high desire spouse, it would be Tony. I'm the low desire spouse. And so getting into this place where we knew that, how frequently we were going to be having sex. And that was a conversation that Tony and I had, because there's no one prescription for every couple out there. It's what works for the two of you. But a couple of things really shifted when we got intentional about our sex life. Suddenly, I knew that if he was coming up and touching me, it wasn't because he was only trying to touch me to have sex with me. He was touching me because, you know what, we're good. Everybody's needs are being met. And he actually just, likes touching his wife. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I found that because one of the conversations we had during the 60 Days Sex Challenge was about the fact that I didn't initiate very much at all. It was like a birthday present when Tony would have me initiate sex. But as we started to work through this, I actually developed the ability to initiate sex. And because we were having sex more regularly, one of the completely unexpected and unintended benefits was that there wasn't so much pressure on any one sexual encounter to be amazing.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have sex 2 or 3 times a week. You're like, okay, you know what? Maybe this time is just for us to connect.
Yeah.
And next time when the kids will be out of the house, we can, get loud or bring out the toys or do whatever.
Yeah.
But we had, because that started getting built in, and now I look at how that one decision to be really intentional about our sexual intimacy, how it has really changed the last decade plus that we've been married, and made sexual intimacy easier for me as a low desire spouse.
That is so good. I'm so glad that you talked about that, Alisa, because I think there's probably a lot of women, and even, men, whoever the lower, desiring person is, they struggle with that, and maybe the expectation of what they think their spouse wants. And it does put a lot of pressure to say, okay, if I'm not doing this, or if I don't do this, or if it's not, that it's almost like a failure, or even, bringing on some feelings of shame, or almost a hindrance to even want to do it. It's like that little lie from the enemy, and it's preventing you from wanting to get close to your spouse, or from it being as good as it could be.
Yeah.
So.
No. I think, again, I'll kind of round this back out.
Yeah.
We're really focused on great, positive marriages. And you can't address that if you feel like intimacy is the taboo topic that you never want to talk about. Because let's be honest, it was created by God to be shared with husband and wife, and it's supposed to be good and fun and enjoyable, and everything around it outside of that has made it different or awkward or shameful. So I'm very happy that we are taking time to put some spotlight on the importance of that. And I think the challenges are great. I think that it does get you kind of out of that rut of, whether it's every 2 to 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or, we're all tired. I think that was the one thing I never thought when I got married. Maybe you guys can relate to this, but as I was walking down the aisle, pre-children, and I know we're a blended family, so we had one as soon as we got married, but I never thought as we got married, like my overwhelming feeling in marriage was tired. Like that was I never thought that was going to be the number one feeling that I had. Was just tired, and I think we both kind of relate to that sometimes. Enough, we relate to it enough that we make it a point to make it we don't tell each other we're tired. Like, we're not going to say we're tired because that's what we always say. So when you're in that season of life, it's important to manually adjust and make a change. And I think, just like you said, Tony, I think a lot of couples are in that 3-decision stage. What do we do? Because, we want to stay married, but we're not extremely happy. We're not extremely intimate or close. So what do you do? And I like radical sometimes. I think it's okay.
Can I share a couple that has been part of the one family, and I just think it's amazing what they've done. They've been married for 40 years. And they came across One Extraordinary Marriage because they just weren't where they wanted to be. 40 years of marriage, and I'm like, wow, here's a couple taking a stance. And they stood up and they said, you know what, we're gonna revolutionize our sexual intimacy for them. And you know what, they've been on this journey, and they did a 7-day sex challenge. And it's just so amazing to see this couple who's been married 40 years willing to just take a step of faith and go, we're going to try this. And she has her stuff and he has his stuff, got it. But they were willing to go, we're going to do this 7-day sex challenge. And to see them and hear the joy and the journey they're on emotionally, physically, sexually, it's truly amazing. And now they're scheduling sex, so they're doing the intimacy lifestyle. And even for these guys, they're empty nesters, and there's still stuff that comes up, grandkids who wanting to come over and this, that, and the other. So they're sharing with us some things that we're not even doing yet or a part of yet. I can really relate. And so I think at any age, no matter if you're newlyweds or you've been married 40 plus years, you can step in and watch something happen in your marriage.
It's so good. Our ministry, primarily speaks to blended families, but, it's also a marriage ministry as well. And so, anyone that's listening right now, if you could if they're in that rut, if they are, or where you guys said you were, and they're like, we have those 3 options and we're not thriving in our marriage right now, and it's due to the lack of intimacy. What encouragement or advice or what gift of hope would you impart to them?
It's possible to turn the ship.
It's good.
Right. A lot of times we feel like, and I mean, even relaying this story to you guys, like I can go back there in a heartbeat and remember what it was like when we were making that decision and going, I don't know if we're going to make it. And yet we said, you know what, we're going to try this. We're going to see what happens. And to remember to lock arms with your spouse. So often, like when it comes to sexual intimacy, we want to play tug of war with our spouse. We want to be like, well, I'll do this if you do that. And it becomes this literal tug of war. And your sexual intimacy gets caught in the middle, almost weaponized. And instead to link arms with one another and to say, you know what does it look like if we link arms and we say, hey, maybe we haven't been doing this or it hasn't been working. How can we as a team tackle that problem instead of tackling or attacking one another?
Yeah.
I love it.
So good.
And I would just say a small step over time committing to each other in your marriage can be the best thing. You may not see it right now. When Alisa and I started 12 years ago with our first 60-day sex challenge, we didn't see where we were going to be now. But I will say that we took one small step every day and have continued to do that every day. And look where we're at now, 12 years later. We can sit here and say that I believe, and I think Alisa would agree, we have the best marriage. Is it perfect all the time? No.
Yeah.
But do we have a pretty darn amazing marriage? Absolutely. Am I more in love with Alisa than I was when I first met her? Absolutely. Am I excited about what's to happen? Yes. But it's because we took one small step and we just stayed committed to it, no matter what was happening in our lives or around us with our kids, family, or whatever. We, like Alisa said, we locked arms and we knew we were going to just be committed to one another.
Oh, I love it.
Good.
And that's what every marriage wants.
Yeah.
We want to be able to look up 10, 15, 20 years later. I heard a story last night of a couple who was married for 75 years.
Oh, gosh.
What do they feel at the end of that, or as you go through that? And we all want to feel connected to our spouse, but we cannot neglect the intimacy that God created.
Hey friends, we hope that this episode is blessing your socks off right now, and we just want to take an opportunity to talk about partnering together. If Blended Kingdom Families has touched your marriage and touched your blended family in some way, we'd love to partner with you.
At Blended Kingdom Families, we're trying to reach as many blended families as possible, and we can do more with your support. So please take an opportunity to visit blendedkingdomfamilies.com and click partner. Hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
Guys, last question is, we are Blended Kingdom Families, and so we ask all of our podcast guests, what is a blended kingdom family to you?
I would say a blended kingdom family it's a family that it's really a family with unique beginnings. It puts God at the center and understands that each and every one of its members brings unique gifts, talents, and abilities to create something more extraordinary than the parts.
I love it.
So good.
Love it.
Okay. Well, you guys, tell us where our viewers can find you. Tell us where they can find all of your books.
Yeah, you can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com. You'll find everything you need there. If you're a massive podcast listener, open up your favorite podcast app, looking for the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. You'll find us there. But yeah, go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com. You'll find everything about us and what we're doing and where we're going.
And that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Yes.
Keep pouring into marriages. Your example is helping. I love the book, and I think it's great. So thank you guys so much for being with us.
Yes, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Guys, I hope you've really enjoyed our show. What an extraordinary topic to dive into. What an extraordinary topic to pay attention to. So really thankful for Tony and Alisa for being with us. Hope you've had a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Take care.
Hey BKF community, we want to hear from you guys. If you would take the time to leave us a review, and you can find us on all social media platforms. Our podcast is on every podcast platform, and you can visit us at our website at www.blendedkingdomfamilies.com.
Yeah, guys, we're trying to reach every blended family all over the world, and we can't do this without your partnership. So please take a minute, share, comment, review, tell your friends. Tell them they can all go to blendedkingdomfamilies.com for great resources.